Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful week and that you got some practice building analytic web apps in Python. In this tutorial, we are going to look into the Dash graph core component. So the graph in Dash has different attributes or properties that you can use in order to change the layout or the feel and the experience of your web app. Here, for example, we're using the hover data to change the pie chart on the left. So it's specifically changing the year that the pie chart is showing in the data frame. So we're going to learn about the hover data, and we're going to learn about different attributes that allow you to zoom in, zoom out, double click, use these kind of buttons on the mode bar, maybe make the mode bar disappear so it doesn't display, keep the logo. So we're going to learn many different attributes inside the graph components while we play around with this Dash app. If you want to read more about the Dash graph core component, go to this link right under the video, and here you'll see all about the graph, basic things, how you connect it to different callbacks, and then at the very bottom you'll see all the different properties that you have control over. So we're going to go over some of these properties as we learn this together. As you can see, we have a simple drop down where we can add different countries here. And as we add countries, the pie chart and the graph grows. And if I click on this, I will see the different years. And as I move, the pie chart also shows a population redistribution of all these countries by year. You see how the title of the pie chart changes, population for 1977, 82, 87. So we're going to learn about all this today. If you need to download, I would suggest you download this py file. I'm going to put this link under the video so you can actually download this here and into your computer, upload it into your PyCharm or Spider, and then hit the run button so you can run the script, and you can have this on your computer while I'm explaining all the attributes. This video is going to be divided into two parts. First, we're going to talk about the different attributes that inside the graph component, and then we're going to talk about how to connect the hover data and select data and other types of click data to create different graphs or to influence different graphs. If you want to jump straight into the hover data section or the connection between graph section, just go here to this part. It's under the video. Go into the video layout and click on that on this time, and you can go directly to that section. Okay, so let us start. The first thing we're going to do is import, obviously, these libraries. If you don't have these libraries installed and you're new to Dash, don't worry about it. Just go into your terminal and just do pip install dash. That's all you need, pip install dash. It will install not only Dash and the components and the dependencies, it will also install Plotly and Plotly Express. So assuming you have Dash installed, it takes about 5 minutes. Import these libraries. Then we're gonna use the Gapminder built-in data set that is built into Plotly. We're gonna call that into a pandas data frame, and then we're gonna use this data frame inside our layout in our web app. Of course, I'm using a CSS document file here by Plotly inside my when I initiate my app, because I'm going to use this CSS to put everything into one row. I'm going to put this graph into 6 columns, and I'm going to put this graph into 6 columns, which is why you see here pie chart on the left and line chart on the right, as opposed to one on top of the other. So that's doing it from the CSS. Okay, and now I'm going to go into the layout, and in the layout I'm talking, obviously I have a drop down here with all the values and option. If you don't not know how the drop down works, just go into the video above my head here. It's all about the drop down, and you can see all about the different attributes and how to control the drop down. And then simply inside this div, right inside the layout, we have 2 different graphs. These are now they're empty. The figure is empty, but we're going to use the callback below right here to populate a pie chart in here and a line chart in here. Okay. All right, so let's look into the attributes. The attributes of, I'm just going to do of this graph because they're same. So I'm just going to use the attributes of this graph. Here I'm going to say click data none and hover data none because I don't want anything there for now. And we're going to look into the config attribute. The config attribute is a dictionary, very important to know, it's a dictionary that has keys and values, like every Python dictionary. This key is called static plot. Static plot, if I change that to true, what you will see is the definition or the result of a static plot, meaning that you don't have anything, any mode bar here, and you can't save this as an image or zoom in or zoom out. You can't even select things. It's a very static chart. The dropdown will still work, but you can't really do anything inside this graph. So this is okay maybe if you want to do a presentation and you want to limit the type of interactivity that the user of your app will have. You can use static plot true. Go back to false. Scroll zoom is the key inside this dictionary, the config dictionary. Its value is true. And because its value is true, I can actually zoom into, let's see here, if I put my mouse on this graph, I can zoom into the graph, okay? If I change this to false, then that's not gonna be possible. I will not be able to zoom in. It will just zoom into the whole page. So you can control that if you want as well. Another thing you can control is double click. Double click reset means that if I if I zoom in right here, and I double click, it will reset, right? But if you put false instead, these are the options, right? If I put false here instead of reset, then like this, let me just spell false correctly, then I won't be able to reset anything. It will, if I zoom in here, let's do like this. If I double click, it won't do anything. Okay. I don't recommend doing false. Use either reset or reset with auto size. These are different options. Check them out and see what the difference is. Show tips. Right now there are no tips for a new user that doesn't really know Dash or Plotly. If there's no tips, then for example, let's update this, make sure it's saved. If you go into here, you will see nothing happens. It's just a regular, I just zoomed in. If you put show tips true, look at what happens. Let it load, zoom in. You see how this tip on the top right, double click to zoom back out? Because people don't necessarily know that if they're new to Dash. So this new tips, if you think your users of your web app don't really know data, don't have a lot of experience with data visualizations or graphs, then you can put show tips true. There are other tips as well. The more graphs you have and the more things you have, the more tips that you'll probably will give you by default. Display mode bar is, as you can probably imagine, this is the mode bar right here. If you change that to false, it will not display, or if you change it to hover, it will disappear and will only display if you hover over your graph. No need to necessarily show you how to do that because it's pretty simple. Watermark means that if this is false, and there's no display mode bar, watermark means that it will leave the Plotly logo on it. You see how the Plotly logo is still in there? Because watermark is true. I recommend always leaving this in there. It's good marketing. It's good for showing the world how you build your graph. After all, this is open source and completely free. So if you can give back a little bit and show the world that you're using Plotly, it's kind of cool. It's probably the right thing to do. So let's bring this back to true. So because I want a display mode bar, in which case this doesn't really matter because the Plotly logo will be displayed. Mode bar, you have another attribute inside or key inside the config attribute. And this key is what it says. It's to remove some buttons inside the mode bar. So let's say I want the mode bar, but I don't want all the buttons that it has, right? So what I did now, I actually told Dash to remove the select icon and the zoom in icon. Let's see what these are. As you can see right here, I save it. Look at these, there's nothing here. And now I put false. This came back, this is the select one. And this came back the pan, which is, I think it's not zoom, sorry. It's how you can move things around. So if you don't want, for example, these two buttons, all you have to do is a mode bar remove and just put them inside the list, whatever you want to remove, and this won't exist anymore. So you see, these here, these buttons don't exist anymore. You also have the option of doing mode bar buttons add is another attribute in order to add certain buttons if you want. For a full list of all the buttons, just go into DCC graph. You'll see down here the full list of what, no, it's not actually in there. It's was remove right here. You'll see a full list of all the buttons you can add or remove in the mode bar. If you want to go in here, I think there's even a the list is even fuller. Maybe they have more of the list here, or at least an explanation of every button. Okay, so let's leave this out. So all the mode bar buttons are in there by default, and we are done with the config attributes. Perfect. Now, for the second part of the tutorial, we're going to go over the hover data attribute and see how we use it to connect and build a pie chart on the left and change the year accordingly. So what we're doing is, let's skip this callback because this callback is just building the first line chart figure. You see we're building a line chart here with the years on the x-axis, the GDP on the y-axis, and the color per country. So this is all built with the first callback that is tied to the drop-down, right? The drop-down value, which gives us the countries. So this is built. If you want to learn more about how you connect the callback to everything and how you connect drop-down to a line chart, just go into this video above and it'll explain a lot more about the callback and how to connect everything. But for now, we're going to focus on the second chart and the hover data. Important note to make to tell you that I'm using Dash version 1.16, so these you don't have to put inputs inside a list anymore. So just make sure that you have Dash 1.16 or higher. Okay, so the first thing I have is a figure, and obviously you need this figure inside the output because this is whatever I'm going to return, whatever object or figure I'm going to return in the callback function is going to populate or display that figure inside the graph component. So how am I building this? What I'm doing, I'm taking 4 inputs to create the pie chart and then spit the pie chart out. Well, specifically, I'm taking only the hover data to build the pie chart. I added these so you can look at them later and see what they mean. Okay, so the first input is the hover data, the first value or attribute of the pie graph. Remember, I'm using the component ID, I'm using the my graph ID because I'm going to actually take this attribute, the hover data, from the line chart that I created above. Right? This only works because I created the line chart above this callback. So first you create the line chart, you populate everything in there, and then you say, take the hover data from that line chart and then do something with it below. Okay, so just make sure you create the line chart first if you're gonna take attributes from it. So take the hover data, take the click data, take also the value of the countries inside the drop down, and then build the graph inside of here. Okay. So the first thing we're doing is we're saying if the hover data is none. And why is hover data none? Because the first time you load your graph, let's take a look. First time, let's reset this. You load your graph, there's no hover data, right? There you haven't even hovered over your line chart yet. So I'm saying if there is no hover data, then take the drop-down values, the chosen countries, which are by default Brazil and Germany, although you can change them. Filter your data frame so that it only has those 2 countries and not all 190 countries. Take this year, by default, take 1952. Print this data frame so you see what you get. We get only 2 rows with Brazil and Germany with 1952, and there are all these columns in the data frame. And then just build the pie chart. Build a pie chart with a data frame, the values, the names, and the title. So this is the default pie chart that we get when your app user loads your app for the first time or refreshes your app. There is no hover data. This is built by default. However, if we do have hover data, we're going to say here else. If we do have hover data, let's print out the hover data and look and see what it looks like. And it's going to print out here inside the terminal. So we go in here, hover data, let's do 2007. Hover over 2007 Brazil. Now we'll go in here and we'll see that the hover data populated and it actually printed out because the callback function was activated, right? Because the hover data, we hovered. and we printed out points. This is how the hover data looks like. It has a dictionary of points is the key, and the value is a list of one dictionary inside this list. One dictionary, and here are all the different values or keys and values inside the dictionary. So there's the X, the Y, and then there's custom data. Custom data is very important to remember. This is not here by default, and this is something you need to know, because if you do know this, it will expand your capabilities of what you can do. The custom data comes from right here. When I built the line chart above this figure here, I added custom data, the attributes inside the line chart, and the custom data I added inside the list of the custom data all these strings, and these strings I added not from nowhere. I added them because they exist inside the DFF, inside the data frame. You can only add to the custom data those columns that exist inside the data frame. So I decided to add, I think there's about 6 or 7 columns. I just wanted these columns. So because I added these columns, now if I hover over any type of year, you can do this or this, it doesn't matter. If I hover over them, these information is going to show up over the hover. You see? So now I have custom data with Germany, Europe, and all this information that's there. Let's see how it actually changes as I hover. It's kind of cool. Let's see, 1952. So now I'll hover over 1952. You'll see it will change. Look at the left. It'll change to 1957. 1962, 1967, 72. So it changes as I hover, and that is how we're going to use that quick change to build this pie chart. So what I'm saying here is, let's go down below. So I printed out the hover data just so you see what it looks like. And now I'm just going to say take the countries and just again just filter the data frame, so we only have those 2 countries. And now I'm going to take the points 0x. This probably looks like Chinese to you, well, at least it did to me. But once you see how the hover data looks like, you see that I'm actually taking the X value from inside this dictionary. So this is the way to do it. You go into the points key, you go to the value of this key, which is this first list. Well, it's the only list. And then you go into the first item, which is this whole dictionary. So that's why you do 0. And then you go into the X key because you want the 1972 value, right? So this is actually saying 1972. So, oops, this is actually saying right here 1972. It's exactly the same thing, right? So now it's 1972 because that's what I hovered on. I'm filtering my data frame, so it's only the row of 1972 from those 2 countries, Brazil and Germany. And then just like I did above, I'm building the pie chart with the new data frame. I'm populating with values and names. That's what you need for a pie chart. And the title, I'm just going to say hub year. So whatever year we filtered from these hover data, that's the title that's going to show up, right? So that's why if I change this to 1957, you'll see on the top left 1957 population for 1962, and so on and so on. And every time it grows, you'll see how Brazil has more and more population compared to Germany, right? You can hover over here and also see this population size. So this is how you do it. This is how you connect hover data information to build a pie chart, or to build an interactive pie chart that changes as your hover changes. But this is not the only attribute you can use. This was hover data. If you want to use different attributes like the clickData and selectedData, you can also use those to build other charts or other things. So let's see what these are. Okay, so let's see. We have the selectedData right here, right? We're putting these arguments inside the function, and we're going to say, let's do this. Let's unlock this and unlock this on hashtag. So we're going to print these out. Let's see what happens. We're going to refresh new, and let's see what happens. So the first time there's nothing because the hover data is empty, is none. But once I have a hover data in there, look what happens. I'm going to put 2007 right here, and I'm actually going to click on it. All right. So what happens is I get the hover data. I get this printed out because I printed out right here, but I also get the click data printed out. And the click data, which comes from the function, the argument, this click data, it looks exactly the same as a hover data. In fact, it is exactly the same. 2007, 9000 is the Y, which is the, I think, GDP and all that. So hover data is exactly the same as click data. However, let me see here. However, it's activated when you click on it. So that's the big advantage. If you want to build a different bar chart or scatter plot that is activated only once a data point is clicked on a different chart, then you use the click data instead of the hover data. You can do it with links as well. If your data frame has a column with links in them, so you can say every time a point is clicked right here, then maybe a link is opened up in a different div and somebody can click on that link and go to that web page. I did that with one of the maps of schools in New York City. So that's click data. Selected data, you see, there is none because we didn't select any data. Selected data comes from this. If I choose box select and I go into, let's go into 2002 and 2007, and I'll select these two data points. Now you will see that the selected data right here shows you different things. This is similar to the hover data, but it has more information. If you want to build different graphs and more things with it, then use the selected data. You have here, because I selected 2002, and you also have, it was Germany. Well, in both cases it was Germany because it's the red line above. And then the second dictionary in this list is the dictionary of 2007. Because you see I selected 2002 and 2007, that's what the box was wrapped around. And it also gives you the range right here at the very end. Will give you a range of X and a range of Y. So this is kind of cool because it's really a lot of information that you can use if you want to build more complex, use this information to build more complex third graph or fourth graph according to the data that is selected. Okay? So very important to remember. Remember how to use, remember that you have to use the select data or in click data and hover data attributes of the graph that you first built above, and then just print them out. Just print them out here so you can see what they look like, and then you can slowly take out whatever information you want from that hover data or click data or select data. Okay, this is just a way I'm showing you here how to take the custom data out of a hover point. So if I hover over 1957, you'll see here that I'm taking out the custom data, which is Brazil, right? Because I went all the way inside right here to take that out. So that's really it. There are different attributes. If you want to learn about the other attributes, just go into the link below the video and you can read all about the different properties of the graph. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot. If you did, click the like button, subscribe below, and turn on your notifications so you can receive every week a video on how to create cool analytic web apps in Python Dash. Send some comments in if you have any questions. I'll try to answer your questions as best I can. Keep practicing, never give up, and always remember we're better together, so help each other out. Have a good day.